Toledo, Ohio, a Rust Belt city that earned its nickname the Glass City through sheer industrial determination. Back in 1888, Edward Drummond Libbey moved his struggling New England glass company here. And he was not just relocating a business, he was making a calculated bet on geography. Toledo had everything glass manufacturing demanded: abundant natural gas, high silica sandstone, and access to both rail networks and the Great Lakes via the port of Toledo along the Maumee River. Within just a few decades, this Lucas County city was producing 1/5 of all plate glass in America. The glass industry created more than just jobs, it sparked genuine innovation. Michael Owens, working for Libbey, invented the automatic bottle-making machine in 1903, completely revolutionizing manufacturing worldwide. By 1937, Toledo was so confident in its glass mastery that it built the world's first all-glass skyscraper right downtown. The message could not have been clearer. Toledo did not just make glass, it embodied glass. Libbey's legacy extends beyond industry. He founded the Toledo Museum of Art in 1901, creating a cultural institution that still showcases the city's artistic heritage today. But glass was only the beginning of Toledo's industrial story. In 1910, John Willys moved his Overland Auto Company from Indianapolis to Toledo's Central Avenue. The timing could not have been better. From 1912 to 1916, Willys-Overland ranked as America's second-largest automaker, trailing only Ford. By the 1920s, Toledo was thriving as one of the nation's largest automotive manufacturing hubs. Then came World War II, and with it, Toledo's most enduring legacy. The Willys plant began producing what would become an American icon, the Jeep. From 1941 to 1945, Toledo manufactured nearly 360,000 military Jeeps, more than half of all Jeeps built for the war effort. When soldiers returned home talking about the rugged vehicles that carried them through Europe and the Pacific, they were talking about machines built right here in Toledo. The post-war decades seemed to validate Toledo's industrial strategy completely. The city's population peaked at 383,818 in 1970. 3 towering smokestacks spelled out Overland in brick, visible for miles, a monument to Toledo's manufacturing might. The St. Lawrence Seaway opened in 1959, transforming Toledo into an international port. Glass giants like Owens, Illinois, with headquarters in Toledo's One Seagate building, and Owens Corning established world headquarters here. Everything pointed toward continued prosperity. But prosperity in single-industry cities is always precarious, and Toledo learned this lesson the hard way. By the 1980s, the city was trapped in economic depression. The global economy had shifted dramatically. Today, 45% of all glass manufacturing happens in China. The glass industry that built Toledo had largely migrated overseas, leaving behind empty factories and unemployed workers. The automotive sector faced its own upheavals. Corporate ownership of the Jeep brand changed hands repeatedly, from Willys to Kaiser Motors in 1953, then to American Motors Corporation, and finally to Chrysler in 1987. Each transition brought uncertainty. Would the new owners maintain Toledo production? Would they invest in the aging facilities? Workers never knew what came next. Toledo's population began a steady decline that continues today. From that 1970 peak of 383,818 residents, the city has shrunk to just 270,871 in 2020, a drop of nearly 30%. Currently, Toledo loses residents at a rate of 0.44% annually. For a city that once competed with Detroit and Cleveland in size and importance, these numbers tell a sobering story. The statistics reveal deeper problems lurking beneath the surface. Toledo's median household income sits at $50,562, significantly below state and national averages. Nearly 1 in 4 residents lives below the poverty line, including 36.8% of children. The unemployment rate fluctuates dramatically, from a low of 3.5% in April 2023 to peaks exceeding 20% during the pandemic. This volatility reflects Toledo's continued dependence on cyclical manufacturing industries. The Stellantis Toledo Assembly Complex perfectly illustrates this precarious stability. In November 2024, the company announced layoffs affecting 1,134 workers, devastating news for families and the broader community. The layoffs were not just about declining Jeep sales, they reflected global automotive industry pressures, supply chain disruptions, and corporate cost-cutting measures largely beyond Toledo's control. But then, in a dramatic reversal, Stellantis announced a $400 million investment in October 2025, promising to bring production of a new mid-size truck to Toledo and create more than 900 jobs. Mayor Wade Kapsukiewicz called it incredible news, while Governor Mike DeWine praised the investment as proof of Ohio's manufacturing competitiveness. Yet the celebration feels muted. The new jobs will not materialize until 2028. The workers laid off in 2024 experienced months of uncertainty. Some were offered return positions as supplemental employees with half pay and virtually no benefits. The roller coaster of layoffs and rehiring has become routine, a cycle that makes long-term planning nearly impossible for workers and their families. This uncertainty extends beyond individual companies. Bruce Baumhauer, president of UAW Local 12, acknowledges that it has all changed dramatically, but whether those changes are truly for the good, as he claims, remains unclear. The death of a 53-year-old worker, Antonio Gaston, in August, followed by only a $16,000 safety fine for Stellantis, highlights ongoing tensions between productivity pressures and worker welfare. Toledo's response has been to diversify, but diversification brings its own challenges. The city is actively courting logistics companies, emphasizing its strategic location within 300 miles of 30% of America's industrial market. Companies like Spartan Logistics are opening massive distribution centers, taking advantage of Toledo's transportation infrastructure and relatively low costs. Diversification. The Port of Toledo processes over 11 million short tons of cargo annually, supporting 8,000 jobs and generating $900 million in economic impact. Recent federal and state investments totaling $30 million are upgrading dock facilities and constructing new warehouses. Cleveland Cliffs invested $700 million in a direct reduction plant, creating 130 permanent jobs and more than 1,200 construction positions. Port. But the shift from manufacturing to logistics represents more than just economic diversification. It is a fundamental change in what kind of work Toledo provides. Manufacturing jobs, particularly in unionized plants, traditionally offered middle-class wages, comprehensive benefits, and career advancement opportunities. Logistics work, while growing rapidly, typically pays less and offers fewer benefits. The transition from making things to moving things may provide employment, but not necessarily prosperity. Logistics. Toledo's leaders remain optimistic despite the challenges. Recent rankings have been encouraging. Barron's named Toledo the hottest place to live in America in 2024, while U.S. News and World Report ranked it second best in Ohio after Columbus. The city's Vibrancy Initiative has attracted $21.6 million in private investment, with just $855,000 in public funding, revitalizing previously vacant commercial space. Vibrancy Governor DeWine has designated Toledo as Ohio's first innovation hub, promising 2,100 new jobs and nearly $300 million in wages. First Solar employs 2,400 people in the state, demonstrating that advanced manufacturing can still thrive here. The University of Toledo and major healthcare systems provide stable employment outside traditional manufacturing. Even Edward Drummond Libbey High School still bears the glass magnate's name today, connecting Toledo's industrial heritage to its present educational mission: innovation. Yet beneath these positive developments lies a persistent fragility. Toledo remains heavily dependent on a few major employers, a vulnerability that single industry cities from Detroit to Pittsburgh to Youngstown know all too well. When Stellantis makes decisions about global production, Toledo's economic future hangs in the balance. When Chinese manufacturers dominate glass production, Toledo's historic advantage evaporates overnight. Fragile. The city's infrastructure investments, while necessary, also highlight its precarious position. Nearly $1 billion in recent transportation improvements position Toledo for future growth, but they also represent massive public expenditures, betting on an uncertain economic transition. Over the past 5 years, Toledo has lost 4% of its businesses, suggesting that not all sectors are thriving. Precarious, Toledo's story is ultimately about adaptation under constant pressure. The city that once confidently built the world's first all-glass skyscraper now must constantly prove its relevance in a global economy. Success requires threading a narrow needle, maintaining manufacturing competitiveness while building logistics capacity, preserving good-paying jobs while attracting new industries, managing population decline while investing in future growth. Adaptation. The smokestacks that once spelled overland have been reduced to a single preserved tower, now a monument rather than a symbol of active production. Toledo's new skyline includes modern logistics facilities and updated port infrastructure, alongside the historic glass buildings. It is a landscape that tells the story of a city caught between two economic eras, working to ensure that its hard-won stability does not prove as fragile as glass. Stability.